Is America quietly heading toward a financial disaster? While many are distracted by political theater and everyday headlines, something far more serious is brewing underneath the surface. The national debt crisis isn't just getting worse, it's accelerating faster than most people realize. And at the heart of this storm, a bill that's been branded as beautiful by its supporters, but may soon be remembered as the catalyst for an economic meltdown. This is the untold story behind the US debt crisis, the controversial bill that's now law, and why it could permanently damage the US dollar's global status. It all began with what some called a political masterpiece, an eye-catching piece of legislation nicknamed the Big, Beautiful Bill, packed with voter-friendly perks like eliminating taxes on tips and overtime paid. The bill quickly gained support. For millions of Americans struggling to keep up with rising costs, those benefits sounded like a lifeline. But hidden beneath the surface were far bigger implications. According to the nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office, this bill will add a staggering $3.4 trillion to the national deficit over the next decade. And here's the kicker, it's not a slow buildup. This debt explosion is front-loaded, meaning the biggest costs hit almost immediately. Let's break down exactly what that means. Next year alone, this bill is projected to add over $500 billion to the deficit. By the following year, that number jumps to over $600 billion. And it doesn't get much better after that. These are not distant future projections, this is happening right now. How did this happen? Simple. Last-minute deals were struck to secure votes. Billions of dollars were added in secretive side agreements, including at least $50 billion for hospital funding. None of it was paid for. It's all borrowed money. Even some Republicans, traditionally seen as the party of fiscal conservatism, raised alarms. Senator Rand Paul went so far as to slam the bill as fiscally irresponsible, warning that it would lock in even bigger deficits for years to come. Here's where the numbers get even more disturbing. The US government is now more than $37 trillion in debt, and that's just the official number. It doesn't even include the massive unfunded liabilities like Social Security, Medicare, and pensions that are looming over the horizon. This year alone, the government expects to bring in about $5 trillion in taxes, but it plans to spend around $7 trillion, meaning it must borrow at least $2 trillion just to cover the gap. And every dollar borrowed has a cost. Interest payments on the debt are skyrocketing, consuming a larger share of the federal budget every year. That means less money for essential services like healthcare, education, and infrastructure. Worse still, this beautiful bill adds even more to those interest costs. And remember, this is just one bill. Future crises, whether they be recessions, wars, or financial bailouts, will require even more borrowing. Despite these facts, supporters of the bill insist it will pay for itself. President Trump and his allies claim the bill will reduce the national debt and spark massive economic growth. But here's a question that no one seems to answer. If this bill really reduces the deficit, why did Congress have to raise the debt ceiling by $5 trillion? It's a glaring contradiction. Common sense suggests that lawmakers know full well that more borrowing is inevitable. They're simply hoping the public won't notice, at least not until it's too late. Some defenders point to the surge in tariff revenue as proof that the government is bringing in more money. And it's true, tariff collections have increased. In June alone, the government raked in $28 billion from tariffs, putting it on track to collect around $336 billion this year. But let's put that into perspective. The federal government plans to spend $7 trillion this year. That means all of this additional tariff revenue covers less than 5% of its spending. Meanwhile, the annual deficit remains close to $2 trillion, even without considering future increases from this bill. Another claim from the bill's supporters involves so-called savings generated by bureaucratic reforms. According to official government figures, these reforms have saved $190 billion. Sounds impressive until you look closer. Those savings are projected over an entire decade, not annually. For this year, the actual savings amount to just $19 billion. And here's the brutal reality. The federal government spends that much money in roughly 24 hours. Even worse, the deficit for fiscal year 2025 is already worse than last year despite all the supposed savings. By May, the deficit had ballooned to $1.36 trillion compared to $1.2 trillion by the same time in 2024. Beyond just numbers on a spreadsheet, this runaway spending has global consequences. The US dollar has long been the world's reserve currency, but cracks are forming in its dominance. As America piles on more debt and prints more money, foreign governments are starting to walk away from the dollar. Central banks around the world are stockpiling gold at a historic pace, while reducing their dollar holdings. In fact, 2025 has already been the worst year for the dollar in the last half-century. This isn't some wild conspiracy theory, it's happening right now in plain sight, and it could signal the beginning of a major financial reset. Here's the scary part. We may already be past the point of no return. More borrowing, more spending, more money printing. This cycle is accelerating, and the world is noticing. The shift away from the US dollar is no longer hypothetical. It's a reality that's picking up speed. No one knows exactly when the tipping point will arrive, but one thing is certain. If the US continues down this path, the consequences will be severe both at home and abroad. This isn't about politics, it's about survival. In the end, the facts are undeniable. America is sinking deeper into debt, the dollar is losing its dominance, and the very foundation of the US economy is showing cracks. The bill that was sold as beautiful may very well be remembered as the spark that ignited an unstoppable financial firestorm. Now, the question is, will America wake up before it's too late? If you want to stay ahead of this developing crisis and understand what it means for your future, make sure you subscribe. We'll be covering every twist and turn in this unfolding financial drama. The world is changing fast, and you won't want to be caught off guard.